You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast, hosted by the founder of Better Beings, Michelle Zellner. Michelle's experiences have equipped her with knowledge and perspective, and for nearly 3 decades, she has been informing, influencing, and inspiring thousands on their journeys. This show spotlights guests of diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise, but they all align with Michelle's purpose and passion to help you be a better human being. There is something for everyone on their way to a healthier, happier life. Enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Be a Better Being podcast. I'm Michelle Zellner, your host, joined today by a smashing, sparkling, super awesome guest, which I can't wait to get into this conversation. Tyneka Pack, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this conversation.
Well, you put out a post in the podcast group that I'm a part of, and I just saw your enthusiasm, your passion, your sparkle literally jumped out through the computer screen at me. And I thought, I've got to have you on because
yes,
we need to share your message. So I like things to just be organic. You introduce yourself way better than I could. Just give the listeners a little history of who you are, and we'll dive into what you are currently doing and what your passions are.
Okay. So I'm going to keep that part short because it can get long. So I am the founder and head trainer and CEO of ImPACKt Fitness. So we are a Baltimore-based fitness company who serves women, so primarily female entrepreneurs and business women, to help them find their strength, their confidence, and balance through their fitness journey. So we've been around for a little over 6 years. I actually started my fitness journey about 10 years ago for my own personal fitness journey that led into me competing into bodybuilding competitions, which eventually led me to starting ImPACKt Fitness. So that's where we are today, still serving women, and recently expanded into workplace wellness.
I love that. So prior to 10 years ago, starting your fitness journey, what was it like growing up? What was your upbringing, your health, your habits? What role did fitness or exercise play in that?
It didn't. It didn't. So, well, let me not say that, because I did do some sports when I was younger. So I skated competitively. I did indoor track in high school for like half a season. So, I mean, it was, So I really didn't get into anything fitness related until the end of 2013, beginning of 2014. So outside of those things, like in school, I was literally in school in like a marketing club, and I did sewing. And
Also,
basically it, yeah. And then went into insurance.
Yeah, also really amazing skills and talents and ways to utilize your time and energy, right?
Yeah.
What prompted you to go on this fitness journey?
So it started off as something for me and my mom to do together for bonding time. And then it ended up just being me. And then I just ended up meeting these group of women at the gym, and they just kind of welcomed me with open arms. And yeah, I didn't know that all of them competed in bodybuilding competitions, which is kind of how I got into that segue.
Well, that's pretty intense to go from not really being any kind of fitness minded to diving into bodybuilding. That is really intense. So I have experience, not personally, I've never competed and I have zero desire. I had plenty of my own issues as a gymnast. I didn't need to exacerbate them by going through bodybuilding. Yeah. But I would love to hear, because I don't think I've ever had anyone on the podcast yet who's talked about the bodybuilding world and what that was like from a female perspective.
Yes. So now me competing wasn't really supposed to happen. So what had happened was I had went to one of their shows. So the girls I trained with, one of them had a show. You know, I always go to support that. I just wanted to be around the support for me. So I'm like, let me just go check out her show. And there was this girl on stage. Her name is Katrina Roundtree. She's actually my friend today. And I saw her and I turned to my coach. I'm like, I want to look just like that. So he's like, okay. So I started, training for my first show. Now, I used to be super skinny. So my nickname is Tiny because I really was tiny. So before I could even step on stage, I had to put on weight. So there was a lot of lifting heavy. There was a lot of food. Which I thoroughly enjoyed. So I prepped like from the middle-ish of 2014, and then I competed in 2015, my first show. Between 2015 and 2017, I did 10 shows, which I do not recommend. That was a lot. I do not recommend. But I will say one thing that the fitness journey has given me that I have never had before was this sense of confidence, which I used to be very, very shy. So you would have never caught me doing no podcast. Like I just was not that girl. However, with the fitness, like it just, I don't know, like I walk different, I talk different, I show up differently, which spilled into other aspects of my life. So that is also one of the reasons I started ImPACKt Fitness, was to share that experience, maybe not from the bodybuilding aspect, but the whole fitness aspect and increasing confidence. So the bodybuilding really made a complete difference in my life. But the prep was great. The prep was great. You know, I don't really have that many complaints.
It is very intense. It's always, I always have to chuckle just a little bit when someone comes to me and says, well, I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. I'm like,
yeah,
trust me, you are not going to look like a bodybuilder lifting weights 3 times a week. I promise.
At all.
And yeah, there's this big misconception, especially from the female side.
Yeah.
And I have been passionate for decades about getting women to lift heavy shit. And people don't want to lift heavy shit, right? They want to tone.
Yeah.
Well, muscle is tone, right? It's muscle without body fat covering it. That's what you're seeing. The only way to build muscle is to lift heavy shit. And so, you know, I think for you, a little bit different from most women I work with. A lot of people enter a fitness journey because maybe it's part of an overall weight loss goal. You know, sometimes we'll kind of scowl and grumble at the skinny girl who has to gain weight, right?
Yeah.
And we're the ones who are working so hard to either lose weight or keep it off or whatever. Did you face any of that kind of backwards challenge? Just anybody in your environment or within the bodybuilding world itself?
The only thing I would say is one of my family members, not a close family member, but a family member was just like, don't lift too heavy because you don't want to get all bulky and look manly and da, 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 da. And I'm just like, whatever. But outside of that, everyone else is very supportive. And, you know, it was just, I guess, amazing for them to see like the physical transformation, because Tiny was not so tiny anymore by the time she stepped on stage. So everyone else was very supportive.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about what that training regimen and the food regimen looks like.
Yeah. So the training was great. Like I loved lifting heavy. So obviously not heavy every single day, but my workouts were intense. You know, there were some deload weeks where I, you know, toned it down a bit. As far as the diet, I felt like I was on prep from the moment I decided to compete until like the last time I stepped on stage. Like I feel like it was a lot, but the food, the having to measure everything, like measuring everything down to like the last almond, like all of that matters. Like it's just it's a very delicate situation, because a little bit of this and a little bit of that here and there adds up to a lot, and like your coach is gonna know. So coach is gonna know. So that discipline was tested. That was literally the hardest part, is always the nutrition, but nutrition for a competition that's a different ball game. So I feel like if you can follow that type of diet, like you can do anything in life, you know. I feel like, because that was just, it was a struggle. But like once you're in it, I felt like once I was in it and I adjusted, like I was okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like almost anything, right? The first time you do it, it's foreign, it's a lot of work, you don't know exactly, it's cumbersome, time consuming. Just like anything, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And while so many people struggle with nutrition in general, they feel like they have to have it down to the almond, or it's not going to work. And that's the difference between being on stage for a show and just trying to be a healthy, happy human. Right? It doesn't have to be down to the almond to be a healthy, happy human. If you want to compete well in a show, yeah, it is a whole different ballgame. But so often I find that all or nothing mindset kicks in. Is that something you find with the women that you work with?
I feel like when I meet them, that is their mindset. But like after the consultation and like we're having our conversation, so I tell them like what to expect. Like this is how it's really going to be. Like you don't have to do this, but this is kind of what it is. That, you know, definitely changes their mindset. But there have definitely been a handful of women who have felt that way. And then I just see it online too. So yeah, yes, it is a real thing.
Yeah, and it becomes very overwhelming and typically leads us to doing nothing, which,
Yes.
or it's the extremes, right? We do it all for a little bit of time and then we do nothing. And I'm curious in your bodybuilding experiences, because I've had friends who have done shows and I've seen the world. Very often they do the show and then they swing the complete other direction and like gain 30 pounds in 3 weeks because they've been in such a state of restriction for the show. So what was that like in your own experience, as well as maybe people that were in the space with you?
Listen, I didn't have time to get off track because I had another show around the corner. It felt like it, but the times where I actually was able to, everybody who knows me, they know that during my prep days, like I loved Oreos. Like for every show, like I would have at least 2 packs of Oreos waiting for me, literally when I stepped off stage. So during the in-between times, my off season, I didn't gain too much. Like I probably gained like a solid 5 from those cookies, like a day or two or so after the show. But I always still stayed relatively prep ready, if that makes sense. So like even now, like my first stage weight was like 111. My 111 before competing was like skin and bones, but this was like a muscle 111. On my off season, I'd say maybe around like 120s, 125, so that's going to look a little bit differently, but yeah. I try not to deviate too far, but I have seen some folks who have completely just went stage left. And I'm just like, you gonna compete again? Like, what's the plan? I knew like at some point I didn't want to. So I did make sure that I stayed relatively, prep ready.
Well, and I had a year or so ago, my friend Vinny Nuzzo on the show, and he was a bodybuilder, and he acknowledged, and I'm curious if you've seen this, I know I've seen it, that in a lot of ways, it can, not always, it's a socially acceptable way of actually engaging in an eating disorder, right? That some people, it turns into that restrict, and then, okay, the show's over and now I can go the other way. Now, to get my body back to where I like it, I need to restrict, but I only restrict if I'm getting ready for a show. So it becomes this event that turns into this major life-altering experience, because to stay in that kind of restriction and to do the big swings back and forth, clearly not healthy. So how have you seen that play out?
For me personally, okay, so for me, I am a foodie at heart. So I think that's why the nutrition part was a little struggle for me. But my coach did like preach to me constantly, like when like show was over, like you're still able to stay on track, but you're also still able to enjoy the foods that you like. My issue with post show was trying to get used to my body after a prep. So like my off season body after building muscle, if that makes sense, because I really haven't had like that time where I was actually off. I'm able to eat, and now like the lines are gone. I mean, my abs are like they're playing peekaboo, like they're there, but they're not. And then just things are starting to be like fluffy. So for me, it was a really harder transition to get used to my new body and realizing like this is a normal body. Like your stage body is not like your walk around year round body. Like you did this for the stage for like all of 5 or 10 minutes of fame, right? But this new body that you have, like this is a normal, healthy body. So I don't know how that ties into the diet, but for me, that was, I would say, the hardest transition from my competing life to my everyday life.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. I know for me, and I've worked with people who maybe at some point in their lives they were in a really good physical state, and then for a variety of reasons they're not in that physical state anymore, and they wish they could have that body back, right? That way they were would be their walk around body all the time. And it's the same. Obviously, it's at a different level. But you think about all of the effort that goes into having that stage body, and that is not a sustainable way of living life.
Yeah.
And probably from a health standpoint, not healthy to live that way sustainably either. And so, yeah, I can see how that mindset would be difficult, and adjusting to like accepting you still look amazing, no doubt. Stage body or not stage body, but it's what we get used to seeing in the mirror, and then we like this, and we'd like to have this, but without all the effort.
Yep. Bingo.
Yep.
Bingo.
Yeah. So when did you, and maybe you still are you still doing shows, or when did you decide to stop doing them?
So my last show was the end of 2017. November of 2017 was my last show. And I shortly, the month after, launched ImPACKt Fitness from there. So I stopped competing because I started ImPACKt Fitness, and I'm like, well, I had my time to shine and get my body together, and I just wanted to help other people. So it's been over a little over 5. That's 5. No, that's 6 years. Is that 6?
We're going on 7. It's going on 7.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And so you're kind of now just adjusting to living like regular people who don't get up on stage and perform in shows. How have the habits that you learned and the discipline that you really did develop, how did that then translate into the second phase of life where we're not competing?
Oh gosh. So like I still make sure that I go to the gym. I still make sure that my eating is, we're going to be honest, right? So I still make sure that my eating is like 70 to 80% good, right? So I'm still able to keep that balance. The discipline also translated into business, because we still got to do things we don't want to do. Like we still have to have that consistency with showing up and doing all the things. So yes, it still plays a part in like my physical fitness, but like running a business and all these other things are going to require the same principles in competing and running a business. Like they are like hand in hand. So like if you could build your body, you can build a business, because it's the same principles.
I love that.
Yeah.
So when women come to you, what are some of the things that you see as their challenges, and the ways and the approach that you take to help work around those challenges so that they really do enjoy this as not a chore that they have to do, but it's something that they get to do, and they get all the benefits of it? What's the approach in ImPACKt Fitness?
So most of the women who I work with are busy professionals. They do not prioritize themselves. They do not know how to. They don't know how to start. Like they're like at their breaking point, like, child, I'm fed up. So I want to make sure that they are focusing on what they can do, because I feel like they have this idea of, yeah, I want to start my fitness journey, but I can't go to the gym 4 days a week, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. So my approach is working with what they can do. Okay, well, you can't do 4 days a week for whatever reason, school, kids, whatever the case is. What can you do? What can we start with? So something that's doable. I feel like when some people start their fitness journey, I think we talked about this earlier, like the extremes, either they do it or they don't. They may start and be like, oh, I'm going to go 5 days a week or go 4 days a week, and knowing that it's not realistic. And then they find that it's not. And instead of just scaling back, they just stop completely. So in order to avoid that, like, I just try to meet them where they're at, what they're able to do. We maximize on the things that they can do until we get into that routine, and then we build from there. I also want to make sure that it's things that they enjoy doing, things that they enjoy eating, because the only thing that they're going to be consistent with as far as nutrition and their activities are things that they actually like eating, that they can be consistent with, and things that they like doing. Right. So I try to make sure I have that aspect in it, but also really making sure that they rest and include self-care, because they are working moms, they are running business, they are going to grad school, they are, all the things for everything and everyone else, and not for them. So I really make sure that I'm making sure that they're doing their massages or they're journaling or they're doing X, Y, and Z. Like, that is in their program, to make sure that there's a holistic approach and not just physical fitness and nutrition. Like, it's a holistic aspect to it.
I knew you'd be a great guest because you literally just said all of the things that I say all the time. So,
yes, girl, we're here.
I mean,
we're here.
Yeah. And I love that because it lets the listeners know that we might kind of know how to do this, right?
Just a little bit.
Yes, because we understand what it takes and we know what the obstacles are. And a lot of people think like their challenges are so unique. I'm like, you're not unique. I mean, you are, but you're not.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Everybody, we all have these challenges, and it's letting people figure out how it's going to work for them, giving them those ideas, the tools, the support, the guidance, the celebration, right? We want to celebrate that you're making these hard choices, because it is hard to take that time to take care of yourself. So somebody comes to you and, they have this all or nothing mindset, or they have this idea of they're going to get this amazing outcome, and maybe they're not seeing this amazing outcome that they thought they should have seen by now. How do you address some of that acceptance or reset the realistic expectations? What's your approach to that?
Oh, we talk about that day one. Like, before I even start coaching you, like on the call, the initial call, we're discussing it, because I don't want them to have this unrealistic expectation, because one of the things we're going to set are goals. Like, we need to be realistic with that. Because where they are physically, it took them time to get there. So it's going to take them time to get it off, or, whatever the case is. So it is a slow process. Slow and steady wins the race, right? So I just shut that down out the gate. I shut that down out the gate and say, hey, this is what it's going to be, to make sure that this is sustainable for you. Even after you finish training with me, like, this is going to be a process. If you are expecting an overnight thing, I am not the coach for you, because this is not an overnight thing. Okay. So we those expectations are out the door before we even start day one. Yeah.
I think we probably have a similar clientele where they've tried all the things, right? And they finally have come to the realization that, okay, that quick fix, yes, it can happen, and then the result goes away because what I did to get there wasn't sustainable. So then they're finally like, okay, maybe this whole slow and steady thing is the way to go, but they still want the quick outcome.
They do. Yeah, right. Like, can we do this in like a month, 30 days? Like, ma'am, but no, what did I say?
Yeah. I always tell them I'm here to dash your hopes and dreams.
Yes.
By telling you the truth. But a lot of times at that point, they're actually willing to accept the truth, right?
Yeah.
At some point, you still think, oh, no, I'm different. I will do it different. I'll be that different one. And then maybe you get to the realization like, okay, maybe I'm not different.
Yeah, reality hits like, oh.
That holistic approach, baby step approach, lifestyle change, getting this idea out of my head that I have to see this result by this time or it didn't work. And I think those are all universal challenges that we all face.
Yep.
And I think there's comfort in that, but also I think comfort in knowing that if we did it this way, you'll also get there eventually. Or maybe you won't. because maybe you don't have the time or desire or energy to actually do what it takes to get there. I actually years ago had a young gal come to me and she wanted to compete in a show. And I said, okay, let me tell you what that's going to take, like time commitment, nutrition, these kind of workouts. Oh, I don't have time for that. Okay. What do you have time for? Oh, I have maybe an hour a day, and I was going to do an at-home workout.
And you want to do what?
Right? She had a very unrealistic idea of what it took to develop a show-ready body. And when I shared with her that, you can compete in the show, but you're probably not going to really place well, or you might not even make it on stage. I'm not sure what they'll do. But she said, you know what, I want to give it a try. I want to see what I can do with my body, with the things I have at home in the time that I have. If I feel comfortable and confident to get on stage, I will. And if I don't, I won't. But I want to see what I can do with this. And so we just reset the goal, right? The goal was no longer, I must compete. The goal was, I want to see what I can do with my body in an hour a day at home.
Yeah.
And I mean, she looked amazing. She was not bodybuilding stage at all.
Yeah.
Right? And then she realized getting on stage as a bodybuilder really wasn't what she wanted. What she wanted was to feel strong and to feel confident and to look, be happy when she looked in the mirror. And it turns out that she could accomplish that with what she was able to do. So I think sometimes it's really good to be incredibly clear about what it's going to take to get that outcome. And if that is not an option because you don't have the time, the energy, or desire to devote to that outcome, then let's reset what the expectation and what the goal is. Instead of saying, oh, well, then why bother? Right?
Exactly. I love that. I
mean, it was wonderful for me to see it too, because she was very disciplined and she pushed herself, right? And the nutrition was dialed in. And for most people, that is the harder part because, again, the time, the energy, all the temptations that are around us and all the things. And, when even you're show prepping or even when you're just trying to make lifestyle changes, that means the situations you do or don't put yourself in probably have to change, right? My guess is when you're getting ready for a show, you're not going out to dinner, you're not going out to breakfast, you're not going out for happy hour, right? That's not happening.
That was a struggle. And if I did, I brought my own food for the most. Either brought my own food or had to be very selective when it's just like, well, I might as well just be selective at home.
Right. Well, and I think that also translates to the person who's not trying to get ready for a show, but is maybe trying to make some other goals with their physical health. And you probably can't go out to dinner and out to happy hour and out to breakfast and out to all the things that you want to go out to and still have this outcome.
Yeah.
So then it does come down to choices and figuring out how do we create that balance so that I still enjoy my life and the fun times and the connections and all these things and get outcomes that I want. And,
that's true.
A lot of times, again, it's like this all or nothing and usually doesn't lead to any kind of joy with the outcome.
Yeah, I agree. But I will say having a support system who understands and supports your journey, So I feel like some people worry about like, oh, I won't be able to do this. I won't be able to do that. I won't be able to go to this happy hour and that. Like, if you have that support system, they understand and support your journey. Like, it'll be fine. They will be okay. You'll be okay, right? You'll still be able to keep your friends, have your connections while still making your goals happen.
Yeah. And I mean, that support system is so incredibly crucial. A lot of times people have saboteurs. Oh, come on, just come to happy hour. One happy hour isn't going to kill you, right? Just have this. Come on, have this with me. Go do this. And, that they're not supporting you in that way, right? And so I think it is each of us delivering with clarity how you can support me in this, what that looks like, what I need. And if you're not willing to give me the kind of support I need, then I have to decide if I'm going to be spending that time with you or not.
Girl, all of that.
And all of that is really hard because we all want to do all the things, right? And yeah, so one of my mottos is hard now or harder later. Listeners have probably heard me say that 9,000 times by now.
I like that.
But that is almost always the way it comes down to, right? And it is kind of figuring out where's the value, what's important. Yep. And if I'm willing to sacrifice all these things, it should be for a very good reason. And then at some point, I'm going to try to find balance where I can have some of this and some of this and still have all the joy.
Exactly. And that balance.
Yep. One of the hardest things to create in life is balance. Yeah. So before we officially wrap up, is there anything that you want the listeners to know? Any final tips or insights that we haven't covered yet?
I think we covered a lot. I think we did cover a lot, but I do want to also emphasize the importance of resting during your fitness journey. Like we talked about the all or nothing. We don't want you to do nothing, but we don't want you to do it all. We want you to do it, but also resting. Like resting is important. Burnout is real. So however that you can rest in your journey, resting isn't stopping. Resting is just taking a pause to refuel, rejuvenate so you can keep going, however that looks for you. So the power of resting, just keep that in mind throughout the journey. That's it. Because people neglect that, and that's important. So just make sure we're resting somewhere in there.
and I want to just clarify, I think you mean resting from like the working out, but also resting in general, right? People who are busy, work, kids, work out, got to fit it all in, got to do the fun things, got to do the culture things, got to be productive, got to do. So it is actual downtime. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable with time, right? They feel like it's a waste of time, or I'm being lazy, or I should be doing something. I try to remind people that resting is doing something.
Yeah, because that was me.
Resting.
That was me. That was me. 2019, my clients had to tell me, don't come in on Monday, because I was doing literally all the things and no resting. Like they had to tell me to take time off because they saw I was burnt out. They saw like my cup was like empty and I was not replenishing. So when your clients tell you don't come in after they'd already paid you, first of all. So yeah, rest. Yeah. Take that downtime.
Yeah. So important. I love it. So is all of your stuff in-person based, or do you do virtual coaching as well?
So I do online, I do hybrid. So I have an app that hosts all of my like workouts and library, and where I do my one-on-one coaching. I also do hybrid. So some people who are based online, but they still do some in person. So those are what I offer now.
I love that. We will put all of the ways to connect and get in touch with you in the show notes, because I know there's some people listening who would love to have you as their coach, and they don't live in Baltimore, so they're going to be loving that app. And
I love that. Yes.
This has been fantastic. I knew that your energy and enthusiasm would just pour right through. So thank you so much for sharing time today.
Thank you. I really, really, really appreciate this and appreciate your time.
Yes, absolutely. My pleasure. Listeners, you got it. Now you know you get to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. We hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.